When you hear the word snitching, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Tekashi 6ix9ine? He pales in comparison to the man I'm going to tell you about today. Let me introduce you to the world's biggest snitch. But first, what would make a man sell out one of the world's most infamous drug lord? A man so powerful, his wealth can buy countries, and even the mention of his name strikes fear into the hearts of the common man. Was it the money? A desire for revenge? Or did he have a change of heart? The story you are about to hear is one that you may have never heard before. The story of what a man will do to preserve his own life. But first, who did he sell out? Pablo Escobar, dubbed as the world's richest criminal, with a net worth of over $30 billion. $30 billion in 1980 is equivalent in purchasing power to about $108.5 billion today. This means that in 2022 Forbes' Rich List, Pablo would be the 7th richest person in the world. Between Larry Page and Sergey Brin, these are the guys who own Google. But Pablo made this amount in cash. And all this cash had to be brought from the United States to Colombia somehow. At his peak, he made $430 million in a week. As far back as 1973, Pablo Escobar was seen as a god, revered by all. He accumulated so much money selling drugs from South America to the USA. He ran out of ideas of where to hide it all. At some point during his time away with his daughter, he burned $2 million just to keep her warm. But to a man like Pablo, $2 million was nothing when it came to taking care of his family. He was feared for many reasons. He would often make his men dig graves in his territory, burying his money there. The workers were then paid with bullets in their heads to keep the locations of these graves a secret. Pablo was also skeptical of foreigners, especially Americans, and because of that, none were allowed to participate in the leadership activities of his crime syndicate, the Medellin cartel. But then came Max Mermelstein, born November 1st, 1942, who was studying engineering in New York City. His work as an engineer is what ultimately led him to the crime family. On a chilly Sunday morning in 1978, Max had joined his friend Cardona to go on a drug-induced party. Cardona had forced him to drive him and his roommate to the other side of town. Max had agreed, not knowing the trip was going to change his life forever. Midway through the trip, Cardona began to fight with his roommate, whom he accused of stealing. Furious, Cardona had shot his friend in a fit of rage in the presence of Max. With a look in the rear view, Max saw the bloodied face of his friend and knew it was time to stay calm. Without uttering a word, Max stilled his nerves and drove Cardona to a secluded forest, where they took Cardona's roommate out of the car and buried him in a shallow grave. Max waited for a bullet to the head, but instead he got an invitation to join the Medellin cartel. His job required him to be the point man for drugs that were being moved around Colombia and some other parts of South America. He used his expertise as an engineer to choose ports, locations, delivery ports, and areas that the authorities showed little interest in, which helped move the cartel's business to greater heights. It continued for months till the high-ranking members of the Medellin cartel, which included some of Colombia's most dangerous men, like Jorge Ochoa, Gonzalo Gacha, Carlos Leder, and Pablo Escobar, took interest in him. But there was one problem. He was an American. After various tests were passed, he was introduced into the cartel's inner circle, now closer to the big fish. He gave them the idea of how to send cocaine into the US by dropping them at sea using waterproof packaging. This singular act skyrocketed their earnings into the billions, and it ultimately earned Max an invitation to the Medellin cartel family meetings and an invitation to come to the baptism of Cardona's youngest son, an invitation that had never been given to a foreigner before. And of course, all cartel leaders were present. What could possibly go wrong? It turns out that the US government was trying to trace the large movement of drugs into the country. The US forces accused Barry Seal for having links to the cartel. To save his life, Barry Seal, who once helped the Medellin cartel move their products into the US, agreed to testify against one of the leaders of the cartel, Jorge Ochoa. However, in the drug world, snitching is a death sentence. Marked for assassination, the cartel gave the contract to Max, who mapped out a $1.5 million bounty on Barry's head and gave out the guns that were going to be used for his assassination. But with that amount in play, the US forces were very interested in keeping their witness alive, a move that Max took note of, making him loosen the chase on Barry. When the pressure from the cartel kept growing, the US agents, numbering over 30 men, went in armored vehicles and arrested Max in what looked like a script from Miami Vice. They took the guns from his possession, took him out of his van, and dragged him away. Many claim Max was happy and calm during the event because it saved him from the wrath of the cartel. With the noose already tightened around his neck, he was ready to spill everything he knew about the Medellin cartel. His contribution to the cocaine game was that he smuggled 56 tons of cocaine worth $12.5 billion into the United States. So if he didn't snitch, then he would have been sentenced to life in prison anyway. And nobody wants to sit in an American prison because the law works there, and you can't buy yourself better conditions or a way out like in some South American countries. But under his conditions, the US signed a life protection agreement for him and his family members, who were immediately taken out of Colombia. He was going to be placed in the most comfortable of environments, away from people. Max also owns the highest relocation bill ever recorded in the Witness Protection Program. He got a nice engineering job and worked in Kissimmee, Florida. It was a choice the US was going to take to stop the menace of the Medellin cartel, which was gathering a vast influence around the globe. And all this power fell into Pablo's hands because in the early 80s, cocaine was a fashionable product. He got into the business at the perfect time and earned himself the title the King of Coke, becoming the most infamous narco-terrorist in the world. His customers were all situated in the upper levels of Western society: film stars, lawyers, CEOs, and Wall Street bankers. The demand for coke was so high, Max and Pablo couldn't keep up. But during the investigation, Max began spilling everything he knew about the cartel, revealed their shorthand secret writing, and listed all their transportation, which resulted in a mass arrest of everybody working for the Medellin cartel. Mermelstein was even questioned during a closed session by the then Senator Joe Biden. Yes, the current president of the United States of America. His witness claim got so big that it infuriated Escobar, who placed a $3 million bounty on his head, a move that doubled the US forces' protection of him. The information he revealed destroyed the Medellin cartel, crushing them into various splinters as each tried to hide their tracks from the forces. For Pablo, he made a deal with the Colombian government to arrest him, but only to have him stay in his self-built prison without any extradition. You've probably heard about the 5-star prison he built for himself called La Catedral, where he parties with beautiful women. Alcohol and drugs were a common thing. A year later, he got a tip that he was to be transferred to a real Colombian prison. And of course, he escaped.
Escobar, a ruthless killer, escaped from his own luxury prison when authorities tried to transfer him to another jail,
only to be shot a few months later, exactly a day after his 44th birthday. For Max, his life was saved from an excruciating death at the hands of the Medellin cartel. But even after the judge had freed him from prison after serving 2 years, he was forever trapped in a safe house, where he neither saw the world nor enjoyed the life of a normal man. Well, you can live like a normal human being to some extent, but you always have to look around to make sure no one is going to kill you. It's a hard life to live, especially when you know that the whole Medellin cartel is out looking for you. But to the US government, it was a risk worth taking. Even though protecting Max and fighting the drug cartel had cost them almost all of their budget, to the splintering drug cartels in Colombia and South America, it made them think twice before recruiting a foreigner into their ranks.